guys, welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new here, welcome. My name is Braden, and today we are talking about Saw 10. We are on the 10th installment of this franchise, guys. That is absolutely insane that we are on Saw 10. I mean, where do we even go at this point? Well, the writers of the film tells us. So in Saw 10, hoping for a miraculous cure, John Kramer travels to Mexico for a risky and experimental medical procedure, only to discover that the entire operation is a scam to defraud the most vulnerable. And from there on out, we have John Kramer's most personal game to date. And we get to find out exactly what happens in between Saw and Saw 2. And that's what I love about this movie, guys, is that while it's the 10th installment, and yes, it's a sequel, but it's technically a prequel to a story that we already know. Like, we already know what happens later on in the franchise. And the thing that I love about the Saw franchise is it's playing around in a bunch of different, areas. Like, they're like, okay, I want to do this, I want to do this. And obviously the last installment, Spiral from the Book of Saw, was technically a reboot, but it also took place within the same world, and they went with a copycat killer of John Kramer and everything. So a lot of people thought that Saw 10 was going to be a continuation of that, but it's not. And I gotta say right off the bat, guys, I am incredibly happy with the movie that we got. This movie freaking rules. It really does on almost every level. I mean, it's got a great story, great brutality, which we're going to get into in a second, and just great overall delivery on everything. You really do feel for John Kramer in this story. And whoever's idea was to make him, and I don't know if this was just someone's idea in one of the pitches, but whoever's idea it was to make John Kramer the hero, really, of the movie, it's genius. I mean, it works very, very well for this story. The film is directed by Kevin Gruter, and he's not a newbie to the Saw franchise. He directed one of my favorite sequels, Saw 6, and he's also directed a few more installments, but this and Saw 6, I'd say, are probably the best ones that he has directed. I think he's directed 3 of them total. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's how many he has directed. The film has an absolutely gorgeous look. It does what Saw does, and it has some of the fast-paced camera movements and everything. I like that they go back to that just a little bit. They don't overdo it in this movie, though. But the film looks absolutely great. From a directing standpoint, the angles, they all feel really good. It makes it feel like you're within a Saw world. It's got that grimy look to it, and that's something that you want to see in a Saw movie. So I think that the direction of this movie works incredibly well. I briefly want to touch on the script that's written by Josh Stolberg and Peter Goldfinger. They have written the last 3 Saw installments. So they have written Jigsaw, Spiral, and Saw 10. And Saw 10, to no surprise, is actually their best written work so far for this franchise. The story, like I said, it is incredible. The fact that you actually make John Kramer the hero of this story works incredibly well, especially with what he's going through. The first 45 minutes is essentially story-based. It's not very violent. It's John trying to make his way to Mexico to get this procedure done. So if you find this movie slow to start, it's because it is, and it's really setting up the story. It's not something that Saw is necessarily known for, is setting up a story. It's mostly known for just putting people in traps every 5 to 10 minutes and people are trying to get out. And yeah, that's cool to see. At least here we get a big payoff with seeing the violence later on in the movie. So just stick with the story for the first 45 minutes, and then it really delivers on the last hour and 15 minutes. It literally is just all violence and all intense and all brutal, and you guys are really gonna like that. So let's get into the brutality of the movie. Guys, the movie has some really damn good traps. The traps in this movie are really disgusting. It's really disturbing. Are they better than some of the franchise best traps that Destiny and I talked about on Fear Freaks the other night? I think there might be 1 or 2 that can potentially make a top 5 list, but I don't think it's as bad as people are saying. Now, if somebody is not as big into Saw movies or, torture-y type movies, and this isn't even, Saw has never really been too terrible when it comes down to it. I think that The Collector does a lot worse when it comes down to the torture-y side of things. So Saw being in a Saw trap, it's not necessarily as bad as people say, and it's no difference here. The movie's brutal, don't get me wrong, but are you going to be sinking in your seat for the duration of the movie? No. There are a couple things that we have seen so far in the franchise, and there are some new things. So it gives a nice breath of fresh air to people that are fans of the franchise, and it also surprises them with some new stuff that you might not have seen before. But don't worry, guys, the brutality is there. Whether or not it's an original trap or whether or not it's something that we may have seen at least once within the franchise, the brutality is there, and it is definitely intense, and you could tell that this is definitely John Kramer's most personal game to date, and that is why. Tobin Bell absolutely knocks it out of the park, man. Shawnee Smith also knocks it out of the park as Amanda. It's great to see these two characters back together, and I love their dynamic. I really do love their dynamic in this movie, and to make both of them essentially, you know, the heroes of the film, it really does do a great job with capturing the audience and making sure that the audience is on board with these characters while also understanding why they're doing all of these horrible things. And it just really gives us a look inside what John went through and even what Amanda went through in between the events of Saw and Saw 2. So I really did like Saw 10, guys. I think that it is one of the best installments in the franchise. I definitely think it's going to make the top 5 list when I do my Saw ranking. And yeah, guys, I had a great time with this film. So I highly recommend this movie, especially if you guys are Saw fans. You guys are going to love this movie. There's no reason that you shouldn't. So I recommend checking it out. And with all that being said, post your guys' comments down below. Let me know, what do you guys think of Saw 10? Did you guys like it? Did you guys hate it? Did you guys kind of find it somewhere in the middle? If you guys hated it, I'm going to go ahead and go on a limb and say that you're not a Saw fan. So leave comments in the comment section. I absolutely love to read them. And as always, if you guys like this, don't forget to join me on my journey to 15,000 subscribers. And I will see you guys in my next video.